Today's video, we're going to talk about Google uses secondary conversions as campaign signals now. This is a huge announcement. Nobody else, I guarantee you, on YouTube is talking about this. And if they are, I apologize, send me the link. But I don't see anybody, and I've looked around a lot for this. Ultimately, I myself manage about 50 different Google Ads accounts, at least on the strategy itself. We have a big team at our agency that helps execution, on the execution side. But with that said, I get a really good read on things as it's happening. And of course, what Google says isn't the reality of what's happening in the ad account, or a lot of the things that they do is hard to find the documentation on it. The latest update that I've picked up with the accounts that I see and have to manage is that when you mark goals secondary, which a conversion goal in Google Ads that tracks your results, you can either mark it in primary or secondary. If something's marked in secondary, by Google's own words, they're not supposed to be paying attention to it. Google, I've noticed, has been paying attention to it. And we had an incident with a client where we were setting up some backup goal, and that screwed up our campaign performance, particularly on PMAX. And ever since then, I was like, that's interesting. So I wonder what would happen if we added other goals to the account in secondary. Would that, assuming that the right goals, would that actually help the performance, putting the things that we want primarily as primary and the things we want secondarily as secondary, which fits right in with the naming nomenclature there? Would that actually get us better results than just using secondary as a kind of like a secondary data point where we could tell if our primary goals are working because we can have a backup marked in secondary, which is the main reason why we did it, other than the fact that a lot of times building up data in the background, like if we want to optimize for sales, eventually we'll start tracking sales with a secondary goal, and then eventually we'll make that secondary goal primary and take our goal that tracks, let's say, leads and make that secondary itself. But now there's a whole other use for secondary goals, which is to track micro conversions and using that to make your campaigns better, which I'm going to talk about in this video. So I'm going to go over all the details on this. And then if you stay to the end of the video, I'm going to cover a case study here where we talk about how much I should say, this actually gives you in terms of results, size and scope. So with that said, before we get into the content here though, if you do not know who I am Corey Zyman, owner of Guaranteed PPC, an online advertising agency that specializes in guaranteeing results for their clients. That is, we do not charge our clients management fees until we can get them a certain minimum lift in their profitability, basically in excess of the management fees that we charge. We're the only agency out there who offers any kind of similar guarantees, which will tell you something about the quality of the information on this video. So with that said, getting into the content here. Google has previously said that they do not take into consideration secondary goals or conversions that you marked as quote unquote secondary in terms of bidding decisions and basically the basic steering of your campaign. So if you want to get your campaigns to go in a certain direction, you mark goals primary and you say, Google, anything that gets these primary goals, do it. And anything that doesn't get them, conversely, don't do it. The secondary goals had no impact. They're just basically neutral, as per Google's own words, in those efforts to essentially scale the results on your account, given that Google wants a better experience for their users, and they know typically your goals are to track sales or sales adjacent activities. They also want you to spend more money on ads. So they want to figure out who buys so they can charge you more to get in front of those people who buy than the competitor who's only willing to pay so much. And then therefore they can charge more for the auctions that they have. But that's been the case for 10 years now. Okay, that secondary goals aren't used for bidding purposes and steering purposes of the campaigns. Now, this is technically still Google's stance, but the reality is actually different now. I don't know why, and it's slowly been over time, Google's been doing this more and more, where they not only keep changing stuff, which frustrates people, it keeps agencies like ours in business, but they've slowly been also doing things on their own that they don't even tell anybody about. So which also keeps us in business, of course, if you don't understand why your ad performance is going down, and you read through all Google's documentation and it says nothing about what you did that's actually screwed it up, what are you supposed to do? The only reason why I know stuff affects you is because I could see stuff happen over a breadth of different accounts, and I could make the conclusion, okay, well, we did this on these accounts and didn't do it on these accounts, and therefore this particular change causes this. And that's the only way you can really stay abreast of what to do with Google Ads anymore, is running lots of accounts and managing lots of accounts so you can see what changes cause what results. Of course, on a single account, you can make a change, things go awry, and then you could course correct for that. But generally speaking, people make more than one change at once, and then they don't know what is going on. For that matter, what you're going to want to do is ignore Google's stance on secondary goals. Yes, for the most part, Google's optimizing for the primary goals, but they're also optimizing for the secondary goals that you have, particularly when you mark the goals as an account default goal, by the way. They similarly are, just so that you know, scoring the weight they're giving certain conversion goals. So they'll weight a converted lead higher. When you set up your conversion goal, you can mark it as a converted lead or a qualified lead. And they're going to, for the purposes, they want you to define these goals for them. So for purposes of fine-tuning the algorithm that is trying to find new customers, it's going to score or weight the converted lead over a qualified lead. The same thing applies for the category that you put the goal in, whether you put it in the category of site visits or sales or leads. They have their own, as a part of their formula and their algorithm, they're going to score those different goals. So if you have a bunch of goals in your account, it's going to score some more than others in terms of which direction the account's going to go. Okay? For that matter, secondary goals are certainly looked at now, as far as I see it here, in determining where the ads are going to go. Okay? So for that matter, secondary will make sure that under conversions in your account, it won't show up there still. That part is true. But the secondary goal is used in determining where your ads show up, in addition to the primary goals, a bit lesser than the primary goals, but certainly strongly. And I don't know how much more they're weighting the primary goals versus the secondary, but it's not that much different, honestly, at the end of the day. And I don't even think you can quantify it that way, because really what they're doing, what makes logical sense, is for them to use all the goals and then just do some split testing. Does paying attention to this goal gets us more sales? Does paying attention to this goal makes more sales? Or do we pay attention to 3 out of 5? And they're just going to figure it out through deduction. Okay, so whether they weight it highly or not highly is irrelevant, as is what goals that they pay attention to results in sales. If that happens, or when that happens, they're going to pay attention to those goals, whether you mark it primary or secondary. Okay, so if this stuff wasn't complicated enough to get results in Google Ads, now not only do you have to know how to set up conversion tracking, which is its own challenge, but you got to understand what goals to set up, and you're not going to just want basic sales tracking anymore. You're going to want a bunch of different goals, so that Google can use the combination of the different goals there, micro conversions and macro conversions, namely, to determine how to get you the best results on the platform. I mean, you don't have to do it, but if you want the most results, as everybody that's watching this video here is or trying to get, or subscribes to this channel is trying to get, they're trying to get the most results possible. They don't want to sit around and just make mediocre money when they can make a few changes to their account and make double effectively, which is about what it is. So I've talked about in other videos how you should track, your sales. And if you can't track your sales, do it through offline conversion tracking. You want to ultimately optimize for sales eventually in your account. Even if you could optimize for sales, it still is going to pay more optimizing for sales and other conversion goals and cart visits and leads and anything that would strongly correlate with sales. So you understand what I mean about correlate here. In the statistics world, there's a correlation factor of 1 and 0. Anything that correlates to closer to a 1 is more closely related. So like, for instance, bloody noses are correlated with getting punched in the face. Just because one happens doesn't mean the other is going to necessarily happen, but the correlation factor on one of those is actually quite high. It's like maybe a 0.8, something like that. Or when it rains, you get wet, right? That correlation factor is quite high, even though that correlation is not causation itself, as they say. So what they're really trying to do with their statistical models, and I'm not a Google engineer here, so I feel like I'm being a bit pompous talking about how the algorithm works, because they don't publish this information. I just see how the ads react when we do certain things. But ultimately, they're going to see if you add a conversion goal to your account, how well that particular goal correlates with the sale, given that you also track sales, right? Either in your Google Ads account, Google Analytics, whatever. And if it correlates strongly, it's going to potentially use that to optimize your ads with moving forward. That is anything that gets that other goal that's not a sale, given that they know if they optimize for the one, they're automatically going to get the other because they're closely interlinked or correlated to each other, if you will. And you may say, well, why would they even need to do that if they could just optimize for sales? Well, here's the reality. Machine learning algorithms thrive on volumes of data. The more data you have, the better the results of your machine learning algorithm. This is why companies like Google have partnered with Reddit to get access to all the data on their platform, because their machine learning algorithms and their AI systems get better having masses of data to comb through. And as they say, data is the new oil. Whoever has the most data is going to win, is going to be the strongest company, individual out there, because the AI algorithms all rely on data, and data is not free. And all the sites are fenced off because they know they can sell their data. So do you have enough money to get enough data to train your algorithms to have really strong algorithms that are powerful and can do your bidding, if you will? Anyway, I'm getting a bit off course here, but the point is, the more data that your Google Ads account has on you as an advertiser, the better your results are going to be with your ads. So you can track sales. The reality is, for every sale that you get 10 people adding something to their cart on your website. Adding something to your cart, for people adding something to your cart, that's strongly correlated with sales. They're going to actually be better off optimizing for cart sale or cart ads than actual sales, given that they got 10 times the volume of data to look at least short term. Eventually, if you get 10,000 sales, it's negligible as to whether or not, or the value of having the add to cart data becomes less over time the more sales data you get, which is why I've advocated on previous videos that you optimize for cart ads before you optimize for sales if you're not getting the sales results you want right away, because you got more data for the algorithm to work with. But in this particular case, and moving forward, the reality is you set up the cart ad goal, even if you are getting amazing results, because the algorithm's still going to be able to use the cart ad data in addition to the sales data to make decisions. And it's not going to be an easy or on or off thing. It's not just going to rely on sales or cart ads. It's going to look at both. And then with their statistical models, they're going to identify to what value they should look at the data that they have for the cart ad, add it to the data they have on the sales, and have more comprehensive picture on the type of person who likely buys from your company to make better predictions when they have both sets of data, not just one. So you should be tracking a bunch of other things in secondary, not because you want to have a secondary goal to track to see if your primary goals are working. So like what we do at our firm all the time is we'll set up one purchase goal on Google Ads, one on Google Analytics, import to Google Analytics, one to Google Ads, mark the one from Google Analytics in secondary so we can see if the primary goal from Google Ads is working, because the numbers should be similar or at least at a similar ratio. You still can do that, but the benefit is not just that anymore. It's having extra data for the algorithm to look at, if you will. Just taking a quick side here before I get into like some of these goals that you would want to set up to increase your performance if you don't have them already. Subscribe to this channel, because I promise you're not going to find better information on this particular platform or even online about how to make money with ads, because most of the information you see is made by content creators who don't manage ads. If you're serious about making money with ads, if you haven't subscribed to this channel, you're doing yourself a huge disservice. So take a minute and subscribe to this channel so you can at least stay abreast of this type of stuff like I'm talking about here. Furthermore, you should check out my blog on my site at guaranteedppc.com/blog. The blog has step-by-step advice on how to actually make money, step-by-step, using the strategies we use at our firm to guarantee our clients' results, with screenshots, with everything you need to use them. So if you like the channel, you're going to like that resource as well. You should check it out as well. Beyond that, by the way, if you have any questions about anything I'm covering here, leave me a comment below. I get back to every single person who leaves me a question or comment on this channel, usually within 24 hours time. So, and it can be any marketing related question for that matter. I don't care what questions you have. I'm just thankful that you're helping the channel grow. And so I'm open to answering questions. So with that said, moving forward here. Now, as far as secondary goals that you want to set up to train the algorithm better on where the results are on the search engine, or even on the internet with display campaigns, or YouTube with YouTube video ad campaigns, you're going to want to set up for the most ideal results a goal to track cart ads, cart views, checkout starts, calls. Maybe if you get one call a year, you don't need to track calls, but if you're getting regular calls every month, you should be absolutely tracking it, because guess what? The people that want bigger purchases, they're going to be more apt to call. And you want the algorithm to optimize for the bigger purchases. So if you're not tracking calls, you're not going to optimize for the bigger purchases. Form starts. So did they start a form and then did they not finish it, which you can do through Google Analytics, by the way? Form completions. Qualified leads. Did the lead actually turn it? Was it qualified? Did they look like a buyer, in other words? Did they ask for the right things? Furthermore, the qualified lead, you could score the lead between 1 and 10. How likely was that lead to be a high profit opportunity for us? Then you add that score to the goal that tracks if the lead's qualified. So you're giving the algorithm even more data to work with, even more precise data to work with, which is the important thing here. You're letting the algorithm be more and more and more and more precise about what it's doing. The more layers you add to your conversion funnel, essentially, which is what you're doing. You're creating a conversion funnel itself. And by the way, when you properly categorize your conversion goals, that's exactly how Google sees it. They actually even have in the conversion menu a funnel graphic there. They want you to frame out the entire funnel so they can understand how best to serve your needs. As oxymoron as that may seem, with how pissed off they are at Google by raising the cost of the clicks every year and the erratic performance and this and this and this. At the end of the day, life's not fair. Anything with value to it is going to be a pain in the ass to deal with, because everybody wants it. If you just are unemotional about the changes and you just think, how can I do better than my competition so that whoever we need to deal with will just want to deal with me first, you win anyway. And actually, if you think about it, the harder it is, the more your competitors who are lazy and apathetic are going to do less, and the easier it is to win. Local service ads, just as a small example of that, Google sells phone calls in local service markets. Well, you can't really win in that because everybody can start that up. So then people complain, I can't get any more calls. Well, it's so easy, that's going to be your issue. You want it to be hard, because then everybody else is going to be too lazy to do all the things that work. And if you know the things that work, you win by default. You could track other things potentially, like people that have been on the site 2 minutes or more, an engaged viewer, that kind of thing. But all that in and itself is going to be handled by having your Google Analytics 4 account set up, and you link your Google Analytics account to your Google Ads. I know Google Ads uses Google Analytics data now because we've had instances where our Google Analytics data stream got screwed up through a Shopify update with a client. I noticed it. So with that confirmed that Google's utilizing Google Analytics user level data to optimize the Google Ads, at least when the accounts are linked, because I always link the accounts itself. But I'm going to say, even if they're not linked, they're going to figure it out. They're going to put 2 and 2 together. So for that matter, you want to, of course, even if you wanted to set up all your conversion goals through Google Ads exclusively, still set up your Google Analytics account, set up all your conversion goals there, and then link the accounts together, because you're going to get even better results. Or at the very, very least, set up the Google Analytics account with no goals and then link that to Google Ads, because it's going to have all the user level data there. They can see who's scrolling, how far they scrolled, how long they visited the website. Is this a subsequent visit or is this a first visit? On and on and on and on and on. And then they can get so ridiculously good at understanding the types of people who buy from you that your results have to get better. I mean, essentially, it's not that complicated. Through process of elimination, you can get better results on Google Ads. All you got to do is feed your account the right data. The account gets the data about who buys and who doesn't buy, and they just weed out the stuff that doesn't work for you. And they can do this not only based upon the data you're giving it, but it uses all the data they have on their users about what they like, how old they are, demographic, psychographic, firmographic, affinity traits, what they've bought in the past from other vendors, and they use all that user level data, combine it with your data about, okay, The type of person who visits the site more than 2 minutes, they usually eat at Hardee's and they like back rubs. And then in the future, when they're deciding if your ad's going to show for somebody who just recently or just now searches for a brand new car, they're going to say, the guy doesn't like back rubs, so we're not going to have the ad show up. Because it's not statistically likely they're going to buy from this guy. They're going to buy from this other guy over here because his customers don't like back rubs. And that's how the system's set up now. It's super, super, super sophisticated and how well, Google's got $100 billion a year to set up this system. Of course, it's going to be solid. Every year it gets better and better and better. And people get more and more pissed at Google, but they just are pissed at the fact that they don't want to have to work very hard for their ads to work. And I'm sorry, when millions are at stake, of course, it's going to take more to get it. You're not going to be able to do the bare minimum anymore and make it work. You still only have so many hours in the day, so you got to make a decision. You either have to buck up and learn how to do this stuff yourself and put it together, and that's it, and pay no one, or you pay somebody who you know is qualified to do it, and that gets the results, of which that's what we do for clients at our firm. You can hire us. We'll get it done right. I promise you, we'll give you a guarantee. We also sell ad templates. If you are in a market that we've already been in before, in a different city, different country, we'll sell you the winning ads, landing pages, all of it that work for your market. We'll tell you the results you're going to get with it up front. I know a lot of guys want to manage their own ads, so that's the answer for you. Or, of course, can reach out to me and get a 30-minute coaching call. I'll look through all your stuff. I'll tell you why your ads are not working. And I'll look through everything. The ads, the sales process, the pricing strategy, the packaging. I don't care where the problem is. I'll be able to find the bottleneck in there. Anyway, so there's plenty of ways to shortcut this process. You don't have to do it all for yourself. And there's no discount PPC service that makes any sense at the end of the day. There's PPC services that are profitable and there's ones that not. And usually the cheap ones, they get you by, it sounds cheap and then you get ripped off. I know because the average client I deal with has been ripped off at least 3-4 times because they just don't get it unless they have went through that. Anyway, getting back to what I was saying here. So I have a case study here in addition that I'm going to share with you here to show you just how impactful setting up all these conversion goals are. We had a designer home goods company that when they were starting out, all they had was just basic cart tracking. They got phone sales. They didn't worry about uploading them like most people. They got phone calls, but they didn't upload those phone calls. They got form fills. They didn't upload those form fills. They didn't care or think that they needed to care about that. They didn't track really anything else, or they didn't track anything else, I should say. So we went from that to track every form fill, every phone call, every cart ad, every cart view, every person who got to the checkout confirmation page. And then, of course, the purchases were still tracked. And with that, we got a ton of results. So we went from basic cart tracking to full funnel tracking all the way through the cart, tracking phone calls, form fills, and sales that came through the phone in addition, which, by the way, percentage-wise, the phone sales was 10 to 20% extra. So it's not that big of a difference. The size of change we got in the results year over year, though, was a hell of a lot more than 10 to 20%. In fact, it was 74% year over year when I did the report prior to making this video. On an 8-year-old account where we're 9 months in with the client already, and where the advertising spend was only $6K a month US, the previous results on that account were stale. So when we came on, of course, they don't hire us when their ads are working. Nobody does that. Oh, I wish that would be the case. Oh, Corey, it's working great. Just keep it on the rails. Yeah, that doesn't happen. You only get a sweetheart deal like that when you're working with an agency that's getting a kickback from the vendor, blah, 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 blah. We're not the type of agency. People hire us when everything's going wrong. And then they want us to do a Hail Mary for them. So with that said, okay, they weren't getting any sales results at all, year over year, flat. At least we had that. It's hell on earth when their sales are diving. They're about ready to go out of business. They want us to do the actual Hail Mary thing. But their sales are flat. We added all that tracking. Yes, we added a couple campaigns, but the additional campaigns were 10 to 20% more ad spend overall was going through that campaign. But the most of the results there were coming from the additional tracking that we implemented. It's to the point now where, we got to guarantee clients results. I know if a client has terrible tracking, if we just hook up the tracking like I just described, and we give it a good 6 to 12 months to kind of gather some data, the results are going to go up every time. We don't even have to touch the ads. Literally, no, you don't have to touch your ads at all to get better results nowadays if you haven't got the tracking upgraded all the way like this. Set up the tracking, do nothing, the results are going to start going up. Now, eventually, you're going to hit a roadblock with it, of course. You're not going to go up forever, and this is just the start. I want to say our year-over-year results would keep growing for the next 24 to 36 months just based upon the pacing and the projected growth and looking at the chart. So we might be able to say our profit will increase 2 or 3 times just by having this tracking hooked up this way. So take it for what you will. If you want, a lot of companies, they try to do it themselves as a small, as an owner until they're too busy. Then they have to either outsource it to an agency or they have to hire someone in-house. Generally speaking, an agency is going to be the best because they're going to have the knowledge about what works over a great number of accounts, which is where real knowledge comes from. In-house, though, is much better because you get somebody to answer to, and you're not going to, have that agency, who they're assigning you to get quit, and then you have a new person. So it has its own benefits. So what we've done here at our company is to say, hey, you hire us, our agency will act as an in-house team for you. We'll give you free ad spend to get your ads going more, or in general going, and we'll spend 5 figures to get your ads going up front as our investment into your company, set up all your ads and run them for free. In exchange, you give us a cut of your future revenue growth, and we'll be willing to do that. You got a great product or service, and obviously it's a market leader. You just don't have the right advertising. We'll come into the advertising right, and your company will explode. We'll take you from $500,000 a year to 5 to 10 million a year, no problem, because we know exactly what we're doing. If you are interested in having us partner with you like this, we also been doing these deals where we're legitimate investors in the company. We take 1 to 10% of the revenue growth in the company overall in order to serve as your permanent installed ad department at your company, and we'll do that for you. Similar to that, I just released a brand new Discord. If you like to learn from other guys that are doing the strategies that I talk about on this channel, go into the Discord. You can talk with other people that are watching this channel there. You can find the link in the video description, of which I've got a great PPC course I put in there just as a way to attract people to subscribe initially, of which takes you from 0 to millions in terms of building an advertising account for your business. So it's a really good course. You should check that out as well. With that said, I'm going to wrap it up with that. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. If you want to see another video, click here. It is one of my best ones.